The DePave program works to change overpaved places into vibrant green spaces. The purpose of the project is to improve water quality through community engagement. Joining me now is Allan Warren, Community Engagement Manager from Pierce Conservation District, to talk about this program. Welcome, Allan.
Thank you.
It's really nice to have you here. We're going to start with you giving us an overview of what the DePave program is.
Well, you hit it on the head. It's basically a pavement removal program. We work with community members to help get them to nominate sites around Tacoma and Pierce County at large to say this site has too much pavement, it's not needed, and we'd like to turn it into a prettier space, basically. For us, it's a way of dealing with and helping the city of Tacoma deal with stormwater issues.
And how has the city of Tacoma supported this program?
In a number of ways. Most specifically through the Make a Splash grants program. We've worked with them on previous projects to help get some funding for these efforts through that, but also through environmental sponsorship by having part of the program is bringing in new soil, so amending the soil that's below the pavement. So Tagro comes in and delivers a bunch of soil. We were really working closely with City of Tacoma on the pilot program at 6th and Sprague, and overlapped really nicely with their environmental services group to make that project happen. Great support from many levels of the city to get this program started, and now working towards building it as well.
So what community partners have you engaged in the DePave program?
Neighborhood councils have been kind of our initial point of engaging the community, going to places like the Dome Top Neighborhood Council or South Tacoma Neighborhood Council and presenting it as an opportunity to invite folks that are at those meetings to say, if you know of a place in your neighborhood that has pavement that's kind of an ugly spot that doesn't need to be paved, let us know and we'll send it through a vetting process and figure out if it's a great spot or not to do a DePave project. And then working with business districts as well. The project that we just finished on McKinley was both the Dome Top Neighborhood Council and the McKinley Business District were heavily involved. They were the ones that recruited 50+ volunteers from the community to come out and help. And also business support, like BN Builders did a lot of in-kind sponsorship for the project, and they were all recruited by the volunteers who originally nominated the site that were part of the neighborhood council and the business district.
So how many sites have you depaved in Tacoma thus far?
Thus far, just the two. We've got the 6th and Sprague and then the McKinley Dome Top Avenue area. We've also done a project in Puyallup. And right now we're working on, recently I did a presentation at the Enviro House on DePave, and one of the community members there nominated a site at roughly 46th and Yakima. It's kind of between 46th and 48th where Yakima and Thompson kind of Y out there. There's two triangular asphalt islands that just don't do anything. And it had actually been nominated last year, but for various reasons we decided to go with the McKinley project, and now we wrote a couple of different applications for the Make a Splash grants. We got some funding there, and we're moving forward for a project this spring, at least on one of those islands. If we get enough funding, we'll do both islands simultaneously. If we don't, we'll phase it and we'll do one island this spring, and then the next island when we get additional support for it.
And what kind of plantings are you doing in the islands?
We'll do some trees and shrubs. It depends on, that's another area where the city of Tacoma helps. So their environmental services group does the site design. So they'll look at what works best for that particular spot, what's going to be kind of low maintenance, because of the maintenance, the ongoing maintenance is an issue. With McKinley, it was easier because you have adjacent business owners who are ultimately responsible for maintaining the trees and shrubs that we plant. On these islands, it's kind of, they're out there in the middle of the road, so the city is ultimately, once they're established, will be responsible for them. So they'll figure out what's going to be easiest for them to maintain. but it's about 8,000 square feet if you think about the 2 islands. And so there'll be about 10 to 12 trees and probably 300 or so, 400 shrubs. All native species for the most part that can do well in this environment and will look nice and help improve kind of the neighborhood around it.
And is DePave part of a larger urban trend? Is it happening in other places as well?
It is. DePave started in Portland. DePave.org is the organization that really got it going. And they do, their model is predominantly community driven, where we go and we work with volunteers to have sites nominated and then volunteers to help us actually do the physical work. We do a lot of work with the cities and other jurisdictions to make the project planning move forward and really bring a lot of support to it. Theirs is completely community driven, where it's just people from the neighborhoods that nominate sites. They raise the funds to really get the projects off the ground, and then they do the work. And so they approached us actually to say, we want to get this started up in Puget Sound, and we think the district would be a great organization to kind of house it. And so they're working to bring it to other places like out in Massachusetts, and they're working in Toronto. They're really trying to expand the program as far as they can go. We're working with a lot of different jurisdictions here in the Puget Sound to say, hey, this isn't just a Pierce Conservation District program. This should be something that's going on throughout Puget Sound. So it really can have a big impact once it starts operating at scale.
Great. And our final question is, what's the vision for the future in 5 or 10 years from now? What can you imagine having happened with DePave?
Well, right now we're working on a step towards that. We just submitted a Department of Ecology gross grant that would be able to basically model the program that we've established, do a couple more case studies, one here, a bigger project here in Tacoma, another project in Puyallup, and then a project in Auburn actually that will help us bring in King County, bring in other partners to say, okay, from those case studies, create a technical assistance guide that we can just hand over and say, okay, King County, you start your own program. Seattle, you start your own program. And so what I'd like to see is, instead of us just doing 3 projects a year, there being a couple hundred projects a year throughout the Puget Sound, where now you're talking about millions of gallons of stormwater infiltrated and kept out of the Puget Sound, and all the pollution that goes with it is kept out of our waterways, and people are beautifying their neighborhoods along the way.
That's a fabulous vision for Tacoma and the region. Thank you so much, Allan, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.